Alright guys, Scrappy again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and today is the day where the tournament truly begins here in Toronto. The top 4 teams are back in the venue facing off against each other, but 5 teams eliminated yesterday. Which of those rosters need to blow it up ASAP? The Los Angeles Thieves still not secured a top 6 placing this season. That puts their champs aspirations in certain doubt. Do they need to blow it up ASAP? Shotzzy seems ready for their massive matchup today, OpTic versus Toronto. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Big thanks as well to Underdog Fantasy for supporting today's content. If you guys are looking to get involved in daily fantasy and all sorts of sports and esports, this is the place to be today. We have some big games. Seattle Surge versus the Carolina Royal Ravens. The OpTic guys, of course, are in action as well against Toronto Ultra. FaZe play the New York Subliners today. Of course, we've got the standard high-lower stuff across all sorts of sports and games as we just saw. And also there's the Rivals feature. So if you guys aren't sure which guys are going to get fried harder, you can go for this one. For example, if Fellow +1 is more than TJ, then you win in this particular scenario. And to be fair, Fellow has been an absolute lanimal so far this season. This seems like his best game on LAN in quite some time. So if you guys are in any of these eligible locations and looking to get involved, use code RAB for your special pick and first time deposit bonus up to $250 in bonus cash. Play responsibly if you choose to. Let's dive straight onto the content, baby. Firstly, an update here on Krim. I'm not exactly sure what the surgery was that he undertook, but they did some surgery, I guess, to check for whether he had Crohn's disease. He's still trying to search for what's going on with his top lip, right, and why it's swollen up. And I guess the doctors thought it might be Crohn's related. I guess good news for Krim is that it's not, no Crohn's disease, but they still can't find the answer as to why his top lip seems to be swollen up. So, you know, unfortunate, but still wishing the best for Krim. Of course, he's racing next weekend at the Circuit of the Americas, so wishing the best from there, and of course, glad the surgery and everything all went well. This, though, was the Los Angeles Thieves series yesterday, and honestly, I called this on the watch party, that I felt a Miami top 6 coming on here. Still thought Thieves are probably favoured, but the Miami top 6 was not off the cards, and, you know, my feeling was coming into this weekend, they were better than people were giving them credit for. Certainly online, that seemed to be the case, and on LAN, the theory was, okay, they can't win a map on LAN, but I didn't think that was going to last forever, especially when they played Vegas in losers, and they won one against FaZe in winners, so I thought, okay, maybe there's something in this. I also think it's somewhat scary how absolutely dominantly FaZe won the respawns against Miami. I don't know that Miami, it's been their search and destroy that's been kind of their bread and butter this weekend, but still, I mean, FaZe 80-point club these guys on ReeaL, and they've actually been playing good COD this weekend, Miami, so yeah, I mean, FaZe are looking pretty deadly. It's obviously tough to look past them this weekend, but today we will get a very good picture as to whether anyone is going to be able to compete with them. Miami and Thieves, though, went back and forth big time here on the 6-star. There weren't actually that many lead changes, to be fair. Like, I don't even know if there was more than 1 or 2 or 3, but on the final few hills, it was all over the place, right? Like, the entire game, Miami had a slight lead, and then they got the job done. Thieves will definitely look back and think they could have won this game 1. The game 2, they absolutely should have won. I mean, yeah, there was a few rounds here, even this one, when I don't really know what they're looking at. They eventually get the trade, but it's not enough because Lucky hits the flank and gets 2. So this was a crucial rounds, but again, it's Heretics on 6-star, and I will say, like, when this series came up, looking at the map set here was quite interesting because Thieves, they like playing 6-star, they like playing 6-star hardpoints, they like playing it in search and destroy, but Heretics absolutely love this map right now, and we've seen them play it against FaZe a couple of times. It was the round 11 though that of course has caused a lot of attention here, right? Because I think it was Octane on the watch party that said, oh yeah, no way Lucky clutches this, 1 versus 2. They don't clear it, the first goes down, the second doesn't get the trade, and it's Crimp that slides in there first. Ghosty can't get the trade on him, and you know, it was interesting, right? Ghosty didn't have his greatest series here, but he isn't always going to absolutely dominate, right? And this is the issue with the Los Angeles Thieves, is that if Ghosty doesn't put the team on their back, on his back, they kind of just lose sometimes, and especially in series like this, Thieves just don't look as good on LAN this season. It's just been the case now for some time. Even with Afro, this was true. Since they made the change there with JoeDeceives coming in, it remains true. And they just don't have a consistent slaying force outside of Ghosty. I think Nastie's been good. I really like that AR duo, actually. But the SMGs, Crimp and JoeDeceives, are, as far as I'm concerned, kind of all over the place, really, in terms of what you're going to get. And this is why the reaction to this series, certainly from Crimp, was, I wouldn't say confusing, but it was certainly interesting, right? Because in the control, after going down 2-0, he had a great map, 23 and 14, dominated the high-rise control, and all of a sudden the reverse sweeper's potentially on the cards. But shortly after that, he starts off the next map 0 and 10, and, you know, the crowd were chanting going 7, and this was hilarious, right, that a crowd got to do this twice in the same day and twice in 2 series for the Los Angeles Thieves, right? The same thing happened against Boston when Priestahh started 0-10 map 1, and here Crimp is starting 0-7 on the final map of the series, as it turned out. And then he actually goes 0-10 at this point. So this was the scoreboard. I mean, what are you going to do? Now, Crimp did, well, I was going to say brought it back. He didn't really. He ended with 5, which actually is the lowest KD or lowest kills in a respawn map that anyone's had this season since Afro dropped 5 or something like that. So for some reason, both guys on the Los Angeles Thieves, on sub-base I think as well, getting absolutely slammed. And yeah, he was in the blender there big time. It can happen, but it's just the way that Crimp plays. He's obviously a talented player, and, you know, Shane comes over to kind of console him here and say, like, don't worry about it, like, you had a bad map, but it happens type thing. And look, it's not like Thieves are over in terms of their World Championship ambitions, but let's be real, if you can't beat Miami on LAN, and maybe Miami will go on to have a big run in this tournament, and I'm not going to lie, there are some scripts being written right now for what could happen in the losers bracket today, as we'll dive into in the coming minutes, but it's obviously one of those performances which does not seem especially forgivable, right? And as Donny Temp says, he was going in right here on this performance from Crimp, 5-18, the other team's got 245 points, you know, hit that scrap time, twin, you got to get going. We ain't making this comeback unless you get a kill. So pretty much just say, look, what are you doing, Crimp? Should have made better plays there. Of course, Temp was formerly on the Los Angeles Thieves a few years ago, and maybe thinks he'd do a better job if he comes back. Now, people were in the reply saying, oh, you know, how come you can say this about Crimp? You're not even in the league type thing. And look, Temp says, look, Crimp was the best player in challenges, didn't even have a bad series overall, apart from that one bad map. Got to give disclaimers to critique people nowadays, you know, and obviously he goes on to say something else. Crimp is really good, but if you can't get a hill in the whole first rotation, it's over. He was hard on himself after it happened. That'll probably be the worst map that he'll ever have. And then he fires back to this guy who says, don't you hold the record for the lowest KD in a series. Fact had a point for it, happens to the best. But look, I'm a top 10 KD player on LAN. I'm also one of the most talented COD players ever as well. So, you know, Donny Temp going off on the main stage here. And I thought it was interesting how you read this, right? Because either you read, okay, Temp given fair criticism, or you think, oh, he's in his hater arc, right? And he's just, you know, one player was a bad series and he goes in on him. But what I wanted to mention about Crimp, right, because he says, look, sorry to the supporters, controller broke mid-event and I didn't perform well. Now, this is the same thing that Envoy said, right, back in Major 2, when he had a bad Major, and he said that his controller broke and it kind of threw him off his game. And maybe there's some truth to that. Obviously, JoeDeceives would say, it ain't my fault, right? Like, it's your fault for not having a good backup, right? Which I think is totally fair. If your controller breaks, these things happen. It ain't an excuse, because you can control if you have a backup, a proper backup or not. And if you don't, then, well, it's your fault, basically. So there was that side. But also, he did kind of fry on the map 3, right? So I don't really know if I buy the idea that, well, his controller broke and therefore he was getting torched, because he had a good map 3. And overall, not an absolutely atrocious series, given the performance he had map 4, right? So very strange, but Heretics played some good stuff this series. They're now top 6, and honestly, given that their record online, Miami, is actually really rather good, they're almost 50-50 in their online series. Like, they've done pretty well. The thing is, their LAN has been so bad that it's held them back, but now a top 6 placing, Miami making champs is absolutely on the cards. And obviously, we'll see over the coming days how the standings end up looking here, but not ideal for the Los Angeles Thieves. And do they need to make some sort of move here? That is the question that I'd raise to you guys, because, you know, Octane obviously was looking at this thinking, well, is this really the best result? No. But if they were to make a move, what exactly would they do? And would it necessarily improve their roster? It's not so clear that's actually going to be the case, let's be honest. There was also the talk about the Minnesota Rocker. I know that this tweet kind of blew up yesterday, 400,000 views on this one here from Shah. Best melee AR in the league, because, you know, this was a pretty bad moment of accuracy. He doesn't get the reload off properly. His whole job here is to stop the guys crossing into the point, isn't it? But no, they just run across his line of sight. So one gets to the point and gets shut down. He jukes the Semtex straight at the wall, and then he, like, is he not meant to hold the cross? 2 guys go in, they get the trade, and then he just dies. Like, yeah, when I was watching this live, I was like, not the best play from Lamar that I've ever seen, I'm not going to lie. And this is a crucial moment, obviously, right? Because the fact that Seattle Surge get the break in here, and therefore there's been talk about, well, if you're going to have Gunless on the team, do you not need another main AR instead? I think Rocker, like, for sure need changes, because after this tournament, I think they're still going to be on like 120 points. There's plenty of other teams that are going to overtake them now, and their seed is going to drop dramatically, and they're going to be right on the cusp of making the World Championship, and difficult to say whether they'll make it, especially if Ravens continue to have good performances on LAN. Seattle Surge, that secured them a top 8 as of yesterday. They could get top 6 today. Who knows what's going to happen with Miami from now to the end of the tournament. Very exciting stuff. But let's talk about the storylines going into today, because man, we have some good ones. The way this bracket is potentially set up in losers is creating some really spicy stuff. Obviously, we have the 0-4 versus Sib Little Man stuff that was briefly addressed yesterday in the press conference. But of course, what is possible is that they play in the tournament. Because if Subliners were to lose to FaZe and Surge were to beat Ravens, which is, I'm not predicting that to happen, I think Ravens will win, but they certainly could win Seattle Surge, absolutely. Then they will play each other, 0-4 and Sib. And, well, I'll be there for that one. And then, of course, the OpTic guys, they play against Toronto Ultra today. Very incredible series this is going to be. In front of the home crowd, the OpTic crowd, the Toronto crowd. It's going to be an electric series, absolutely. Difficult one to call, I think. But OpTic haven't lost to anyone that isn't called Atlanta FaZe since January. So you've got to think that OpTic are going to be favoured here. I think I'll take them in a 3-2. My feeling is that there is a bit of a liability for Toronto in their search and destroy play right now. I think OpTic are stronger in that mode, so that's why I'm going to lean OpTic's way. I also think for OpTic, they played Ravens on day 1 and they beat them 3-1. It wasn't absolutely dominant, but it was a good first match nonetheless. And having seen those teams go on to play in losers brackets, I think it's relatively clear that Ravens looked rather good against Gorillas. Now, Gorillas were terrible, but still, I mean, Ravens looked impressive against them, so the OpTic win against Ravens, in hindsight, looks a little bit better than maybe it did at the time, so I still think OpTic are a serious threat for this tournament. But as I said on the storylines, if OpTic were hypothetically to lose to Toronto, they would play last game of the day against Miami, which of course would be a potential revenge series for Heretics, right? So there's some really interesting potential here. I think realistically, lots of the storylines that I've talked about, the Surge versus Subliners thing, the OpTic versus Heretics thing, may not come to fruition, because I think the Ravens should beat Surge. I do think they're the better team on LAN, but Surge are a fun team to watch, and they are a good team. I just think they might make a few too many mistakes in the series to get the win consistently. FaZe, I want to see how this goes against New York, because New York are a solid squad. Obviously, they're a top 4 team, right? And they still won their winners bracket match here, but if they can take a map or 2 off FaZe, I think that's going to be quite telling for the weekends. As I say, OpTic versus Toronto, and then we have the loser of this game, and then, of course, to close out the day to determine who gets to the top 4. So very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
Since he's joined the team, like, our practice has been night and day, and yeah, I mean, we're just a good team, honestly. That's what I think.
Is there anything riding for you on that background of beef with Sib? Do you feel like that adds an extra boost, or are you not really paying attention to it?
I'm not really paying attention to it, because when all the drama was going on, I didn't really take it as beef, because I was just standing like behind my team. So like I was just standing on business, like I said. Like I wasn't gonna let anybody like downplay my team and like breaking GAs and stuff. So going into the match, I'm just there to shoot.
Like a small possibility we'll see you, stand on business once again after you guys win, or no?
Yeah.
But I would say since maybe 2 weeks ago, we had like since the loss against them, we've kind of put like every day we felt like we've been getting better. Obviously it showed it right there, our S&D. S&D is a big thing for us. We feel that if we can close our S&Ds, that we're going to be a really good team to compete with. But yeah, I'm excited. It's always fun playing them.
I know Scrappy usually in chat. Is there one thing you've taken away from top analyst J.Deceives this season?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I don't listen to one thing that guy says. That guy, it's in one ear, out the other, and that's what it is. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
Appreciate it.